Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. Today on the show, Amer Anwar, author of delicious crime thrillers, Brothers in Blood and Stone Cold Trouble. I only read one. I wanted to read both, but this was a nutty week. An awesome book, Brothers in Blood. These thrillers are set in the Southall neighborhood of London, which is also known as Little India or Little Punjab. I was completely immersed in this South Asian immigrant neighborhood while reading Brothers. The book is a wonderful example of what we talk about a lot is how words can evoke entire worlds and how what some call escapist fare or may call it uh, can instill, at least in me as a reader, the desire to learn a lot more about a milieu that is very foreign to me as a German white guy. There's a ton of action. There are crimes. There's a big heist. There is street fighting, and at the core, which I found so incredibly important, is a really tight knit friendship. Um, and also a lot of good natured humor. It is with the utmost pleasure that I would like to welcome Amer Anwar here on the Second Life Book Club. How are you, Amer?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
And how is the avatar and the ambience feel here? To tell us about how you feel. Some people come here skeptically. They find it rather strange. Um,
No,
Avatar and the embodiment and the place.
no, I think it's great. No, the place, as I said a bit earlier, the place feels very like home because all the images in the setting are real and they're from Southall. So I know them and they sort of link in with the book very well. And the avatar's great. I mean, I just love the avatar. So no, I'm very happy with everything.
I'm actually amazed how good the avatar looks. And also uh is it true that your daughter has approved of Second Life?
Yes, she loved it because we had a look around. I was showing her as the set was being built and stuff, and I showed her my avatar and the book club island, and she was just amazed. She was just like, wow. And then she straight away she said, oh, can I get an account? And then we looked it up, but she has to be sort of 16.
Yeah.
So unfortunately she has to wait a little while.
This is something that bugs me a little bit. There was a teen grid years ago, and they shut it down. I mean, it was very expensive to run, and there was
Yeah.
just no traction. And then Minecraft came along and just basically took over. But uh, oh, Jerry here says I want to say this up front because I get accused sometimes to not really look at the local chat. I am monitoring YouTube, Twitter, and also here the local chat. So please chime in if I don't pick it up or if Amr doesn't pick up your comment. Don't take it personally. Just cut and paste it again and again and again. Uh, and we might pick it up. Jerry actually says it's great to read these books actually within their settings. So, did you grow up in Southall?
I grew up actually just down the Uxbridge Road. Nearby, there's a neighborhood called Ealing. And so I was right on the edge of Ealing. But I had lots of friends in Southall. And so I ended up spending a lot of time there hanging out with my friends. So most of my teens and early 20s and going into my 30s I spent a lot of time in Southall.
Now, if I could ask the camera to zoom back carefully and reveal what's actually going on today, because we are actually sitting on a rooftop and we're surrounded by Southall. I'm not going to reveal how we did that or how Ruby, our set designer, did this, but we're sitting on this rooftop, and underneath us is actually a little bit of a Southall neighborhood, little shops there, cars, people there. There's a halal meat shop. There's a place called Rita's, a kebab shop, a Davat Royal jewelry, and a white van, a little bit an older van, which features prominently in your book, Armor. That's one of those things. There's a lot of through lines which I love, and we'll hear a lot of readings too. But I love the van, the tea. I mean, you pick certain things before we get into the subject matter and the reading. You pick like these things that they're not repetitive, but they reoccur, and um, objects, primarily the van or the ritual of drinking tea.
Yeah.
What were you trying to do with that?
Well, with the van, it's the only transport he's got, and a lot of people in Southall, they pride themselves on their cars and stuff like that. So there's a lot of nice cars around,
Ah.
and he doesn't have a car, and he just has this van. So like his friend Jags drives a really nice BMW, and Zach, the main character, he's just left. He's using this really crappy van from work, and it's a van that's sort of covered in dust and rust and dents and things like that that nobody really uses. So even the people at work don't want to use this van, but he's given it, and it's his only means of transport to get around while he's sort of involved in the story of the book. And
Hmm.
it's just something that people comment on. And I think I kind of that idea came to me probably from watching movies like Die Hard,
Hmm.
where he just has it. Bruce Willis just has that white vest on,
Hmm.
and it just gets dirtier and dirtier. And then for a lot of the film, he's also barefooted. And so there's this thing that people are wondering why he's running around barefoot, and it's not like all the time mentioned, but it sort of crops up. And I think I like those little things. It's like an in joke with the reader,
Hmm. Hmm.
because the characters in the book might not have heard the reference before, or they're seeing the van for the first time, and yet they make a comment on it. And I think as a reader, you're like, oh, they've noticed the van, and it
Exactly. They noticed the van. They also noticed that Zach is beaten up and his face is beaten up. I mean, there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of violence in there, uh, but but a lot of humor too. So the people comment on the van. They comment on the fact that he's constantly beaten up or he looks worse.
yeah, he looks
Um,
worse day by day.
I want to briefly look at what this book is about. So there's this main protagonist, Zach Khan, and he works in a building supply distribution center as a driver. This is also really cool because I think the working class element. I find that stuff super important to me as a reader to like if that sort of environment is painted sort of vividly, which you accomplish. That is that is important. And the neighborhood. And let me actually bring up a slide. Shyla prepared a few slides here, a collage of Southall. Here's a little slide. There's people. There's a shop here, and this is a neighborhood. As we said, it's referred to as Little Punjab. Um, it's dominated by Sikhs and Muslims, and we'll get into that. There is also conflict in your book along those um,
Yeah,
religious lines.
yeah.
And I actually looked this up. This I don't know if this is still true, but Southall is only 8% white neighborhood.
These days, yeah, probably
Yeah.
that's probably true. Yeah, that's
So.
why it's called Little India and Little Punjab. But then that comes from sort of like the 60s and 70s when people were immigrating to England from India and Pakistan,
Mhm.
and they would, because they were kind of met with hostility, they would sort of stick together. And then if one person bought a house somewhere, somebody else would, and gradually there was a big community in Southall, and it's been there ever since.
Mhm. I actually looked at the immigration started in the 50s. I mean,
Right.
this looks so fantastic. Here's another little slide here, just people here on the street. This older Sikh man, um, and here's another collage of sort of these typical buildings. Um, it's just wonderful. And like I said, you managed to paint this vivid picture. In my research, I googled Southall, and you know what the first two questions are? The first one is Southall safe? And the next one is Southall rough?
Well, anywhere's sort of rough and can be unsafe. at times. But I mean, if you were to go there during the day, it's perfectly fine. You know, people from all over London and the world actually come and visit, and it's a great place to get a curry. If you like Indian food, there are some fantastic restaurants there.
Mm.
But obviously, you know, if you're out sort of really late at night and the pubs are closing, it's the same story anywhere you go in the UK, I'm afraid. But you know, there'll be some drunken people and things might happen. But I don't think it's any more unsafe than anywhere else.
I didn't want to, I didn't want to put you on the spot to
Nah,
sell Southall to as if you were the minister of tourism. I find these, I find it frankly ridiculous, these questions of Google, how they sort of like uh I don't know, try to satisfy folks that are constantly obsessed with crime rates.
well, I think
um
maybe they'd read my books first and then posted the questions, which would be understandable.
Well, well, yeah. I mean, I see, but I read your books, and there's constant fighting and people on the street, and there's crime. There's 12 million pounds of money and heroin in big warehouses and crap like that.
Yeah,
And
that's why I'm not going to get a job with the Southall Tourist Board anytime soon.
well, but for me, and I think for the audience here, they're gonna go like, I want to go there, not to get into a fight, but I want to get into this vivid
Yeah,
neighborhood of like where the culture is thriving. I mean, I find these. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I found when you go to Little Ethiopia, for example, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like an entire world tour
yeah,
in a 5 mile radius.
yeah. I mean, there's loads of shops in Southall that you won't find anywhere else in terms of food and clothing and music and stuff like that. So it's a real experience to sort of go and have a look.
Now let's go into the reading a little bit here to set the scene and get a little taste here. Uh, Zach is your main protagonist, and
Yep.
I'm gonna magically bring up a little book stand here that is hidden. That's how we roll here on the Second Life Book Club. Um, and we're gonna start right from the very beginning. Is there anything that you want to add? I mean, it develops that this guy was. I mean, I think I should say this. He was in jail for 5 years.
That's right.
Um,
Which
quite
is why
tragic.
which is why he's working. He's wound up working at a builder's yard because he did have a good job before,
Mhm.
but then he ended up going to prison and he lost his job and his flat and everything. So he's having to sort of start again from scratch.
And and his friend is college educated. Well, at least they have some college. They went to college together, and
Yeah, yeah,
it seems like he only got this job. And it's a little right from the beginning, we find out that the boss is. I mean, he's not outright. He's not a criminal, I guess, but he's sort of corruption adjacent a little bit, or at least
yeah. I'd say
you're
so.
yeah.
You're left sort of wondering, and yeah, you don't think he's totally a straight arrow.
Okay, if I could ask you to stand up,
Yeah.
don't fall off the rooftop.
Well, yeah. I'll try not to.
Because that's in the Daily Mail tomorrow. Amer's pushed off rooftop from virtual Southall. No more, no more books.
Right. Okay. So I'll read. This is from the very opening of the book. So the first few pages of the first chapter, just to sort of set the scene.
Okay.
Okay. So chapter 1. Zach had a bad feeling. The most senior person he usually dealt with at the builder's yard where he worked was the manager. But this morning he'd been called in to see the owner, Mr. Bra. That could only mean one thing: trouble. The yard manager, Jatinder Singh Sidhu, known to everyone as Sid, had caught Zach flicking through a newspaper before taking his deliveries out. Tu hale aitea, Sid had said in Punjabi. I was just leaving. Bra sahab tenu balanda. A short, squat man with a thick black moustache, he might have looked athletic if it weren't for the large pot belly straining the fabric of his polo shirt. Zach pushed the refugee crisis, the latest political scandal, and the robbery at Heathrow Airport from his mind and put the paper down. What's he want? Menu ki pata, jaake dekhla. Sid waved at the building behind him. Zach patted brick dust, plaster, and wood chips from his clothing and headed inside through the warehouse, weaving his way between the high stacks of timber and building materials. Hindi music from the latest Bollywood blockbuster accompanied him as he tried to figure out what the boss wanted with him. He hadn't been there long enough to be getting a raise, and there wasn't any scope for career advancement. Then a thought struck him. Maybe he was about to get sacked. He hadn't done anything to warrant it. As far as anyone knew, he worked hard, was good at his job, and, unlike most of the guys that worked there, he spoke fluent English. But as the only Muslim in a company owned and run by Sikhs, he knew if anyone was going to get the boot, it'd be him. It didn't even matter that he wasn't religious. Just having a Muslim name and coming from a Pakistani family would be reason enough. And that was before you even mentioned his criminal record. He climbed the dingy stairs to the first floor office and stopped outside the cheap wooden door. Mr. Bra's name was spelled out on it in bold black capitals on gold stickers. Sod it, he thought. If I get sacked, maybe I'll find something better. His optimism faded as he remembered how hard it had been to land even this job. 5 years inside and a record of violence weren't the sort of qualifications employers were looking for, and there was no shortage of people looking for work. He'd only got this job driving deliveries for Bra building supplies because a friend of his dad's had put a word in. He steeled himself and knocked on the door. Let's just get it over with, he told himself. Ha, Aja, a deep bass voice called out. Zach opened the door and went in. Mr. Bra sat behind a huge mahogany desk. He was a heavy-set man in his late 50s with a barrel chest and wide shoulders. His calloused, shovel-sized hands had clearly seen a lot of manual labor. His coarse skin was molasses brown, and his broad face was nailed in place by dark, deep-set eyes, which regarded Zach with little warmth, despite the tooth-filled smile that split his face. The teeth and eyes reminded Zach of a documentary he'd seen recently about sharks. Thick black hair smoothed back from a large forehead only added to the impression. Zakir, Mr. Bra said, using Zach's given name. He gestured to a pair of cheap office chairs facing his desk. Aake beja. Zach took the seat on the right. He'd only been in the office once before, when he'd come about the job. It hadn't changed in the 6 months since. It didn't look as if it had changed much in the last few decades. It was done up like the set of a bad 1970s TV show. Some of the furniture might actually have been from the 70s. A garishly patterned, threadbare carpet lay dying on the floor, and the walls were covered with faded cream and brown striped paper, peeling at the edges. Brightly coloured religious images, intended to bestow blessings and good fortune on the business, looked down from the wall on the right. On the left, windows let in a dull grey light, which did little to brighten the gloom. You wanted to see me? Zach said.
And that is Amer Anwar reading from Brothers in Blood. Wonderful. Please,
Thank
please
you.
take a sit, Amer. This is so wonderful. This is, like I said, just so vivid right from the beginning here. This scene and this milieu. This is a term I learned from my wife recently. She studies sociology, which I quit after 6 weeks, first semester. And here after this, then Zach will be, and we'll hear about this later too. Will be sent out on his way to deal with the boss's super violent sons, and he is tasked to find the daughter Rita, who is forced into a arranged marriage situation. Now, Amr, can you, for the uninitiated or for the folks who don't know, uh, I don't want to put you on the spot, but tell us briefly what is the conflict between Sikhs and Muslims. So the Sikh community lives in Punjab, which is in India. And I
Yeah,
don't want you to go into the whole partition thing. People can read up on that. That
yeah,
there's
sure.
wonderful books about this too.
Yeah.
Uh, but do take it where you will. I mean, this is up to today, even in these immigrant, or maybe it's more pronounced in in immigrant neighborhoods this conflict that is there in the region between Pakistan and India.
Yeah.
We, uh, take it where you will.
Well, I mean, it stems back. I think in most recent history, it's during partition when India was partitioned off into separate countries. So that was when Pakistan was created, which is a Muslim state. So all the Muslims in India who were a minority suddenly had their own country, and a lot of them sort of like upped and left to go there, where they would then be in a majority to govern themselves because they felt threatened by the Hindu actually majority in the country. And so there was Pakistan, there was East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, but it caused a lot of bloodshed because the British basically just drew a line on a map and decided that's where we, this will be Pakistan. And one of the regions that was sort of pretty much cut in half was the Punjab. So half of
Hmm.
Punjab is actually in Pakistan and the other half is in India. So suddenly you had the Sikh, this because the Sikhs community is from the Punjab. So you had the Sikh community, their home sort of state of Punjab was cut in half. So half of them suddenly found themselves now in Pakistan in a different country where they would be in the minority. So it was just the way that was all handled. But you can even trace the animosity back even further from when the Mughals ruled India, and
Hmm.
they didn't want any other religions sort of because they were Muslims from Persia, and they had the religion that was the dominant one, and Sikhism was quite new then, and they kind of subjugated the Sikhs back then. So this sort of animosity has been around for quite a long time. But the most recent sort of instance was partition, and there was a lot of atrocities on both sides, killings and murders and looting
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and it was really terrible. Like over a million people died.
This type of trauma that it usually I mean it gets passed on through generations. And I was wondering, I mean, this is a super broad question, but in your sense today, I mean, I know and we know that in India right now there's tremendous uh conflict that is fueled by a authoritarian right wing leader, as in many other countries.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
but is in England, is this being sort of replicated, or is it milder, or does it have to do with generations? I mean, I do. I actually have a fair amount of optimism because I see young people that just don't buy the propaganda that we should hate each other. I mean, this is a very superficial analysis, but that's sort of the hope that I sort of latch on to, that I see young people who especially grow up overseas,
Yeah, yeah.
they just don't have it in them.
Well, because you mix, and I think the thing is with, especially in a city like London, it's very multicultural. So, like, I went to school with people from all different nationalities and backgrounds. So you grow up seeing that everyone is just like you. And so my best friends are Sikh, and my background is like I come from a Muslim family. And so when you don't have those barriers, then you don't feel those same kind of prejudices and stuff. But I think in the UK, sometimes there can be kind of like very insular communities. So you might get a community that's predominantly Muslim, and if they
Mhm.
don't mix with other people, then they may have that same kind of standoffishness or those same kind of reserve where they don't mix with other people and they sort of see themselves as being apart, and then they're not that sort of friendly and welcoming um, in those sort of terms. I mean, they'll be perfectly polite and happy and talk to you on the street, but they probably would think, well, I wouldn't want my daughter to marry out of their sort of circle.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
this also has to do with class a lot. I mean, again, I mean,
yeah,
I just want to make clear that folks understand that this is a very nuanced issue, and when we don't want to make a broad statement that it's better or that it's getting there's a lot of nuance here. You can also say at the same time, like you were saying, there may be families that are more isolated because of that isolation abroad. I mean, that happens in other countries too, in America
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in Germany, and there's many reasons for that. And they can then be more sort of retreating into a, I don't know, nationalistic feeling.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, where that's the only way they feel they can survive with their culture in a hostile environment, basically.
Yeah, I mean, do you get, you get, I think Jerry in the chat has said that maybe there's a distinction between large melting pot cities and smaller towns and rural areas, and that's exactly it, because where you've got communities that have a shared language and shared religion, they feel safety in that small community, and perhaps they feel threatened or uncomfortable if they go outside of that. So, that's going to make them sort of not want to kind of engage with other people, and it's going to be harder for them to make friends and appreciate other cultures and people from other backgrounds.
Jerry, thank you for the comment. There's another comment that I don't want to miss because Ava, who has read the book, she says the van that is white here, the van, the infamous van in the book, is actually blue in the book.
Yeah.
Uh, Ava, I'm sorry, but the Second Life Marketplace only had a white van, and I didn't have time to paint it. But yes, thank you for accuracy. Uh, yeah, I mean, with this, with the issue of integration and assimilation, I mean, this is a huge issue. I agree with Jerry on principle that in a melting pot, the opportunity to mix, especially for younger folks who speak the language well, there is a higher likelihood
Yeah.
of that happening. But at the same time, I think there's many other factors, including class, and sort of a religious upbringing, perhaps, or a certain type of upbringing that is more conducive to going outside of one's own circles versus sort of retreating into one's own culture as a means to protect oneself.
Yeah, but in the book, like going back to the book, so it's obvious that Mr. Bra's attitudes stem because he's an older guy, so he has
Yeah.
these older fashioned attitudes, but his sons have picked those attitudes up and basically run
Yes.
with them because they're very kind of anti Zach, and they have a real kind of like prejudice.
But that is so brilliant what you do in the book. Exactly. So Mr. Bryce he wants to marry off his daughter. It has to be arranged. She is rumored to have a Muslim boyfriend, and that's of course absolutely no.
Yep.
And his two kids, and this is one aspect I really love about this book. They're embracing. It's that combination. They embrace the fast cars, um,
Yeah.
the ladies,
Yeah.
as far as concerning them picking up the ladies, but then on the other hand, for their sister, they are extremely old-fashioned, to put it
Yeah.
mildly.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Deb Cortez is saying she sees the van blue. Well, the van may be blue or white. We are here on the Second Life Book Club with Amer Anwar, and I would like Amer now to again do the Second Life Book Club test, to stand up and walk forward. This is like a workout, to read excerpt number 2. And this is where we see Zach in the house of his friend Jack. They've been friends since childhood. Like I said, the friendship aspect of this book is is actually really wonderful. And I actually want to ask this before you read, because there's a lot of books out there. I mean, I read a lot, and sometimes it feels to me that there is a very artificial plot twist, um, where there's this friendship that is portrayed, and then halfway through or towards the end, the big reveal is that the friend, or one of the friend is actually betraying the other friend or whatever, in a thriller type setting. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you don't. I mean, sorry, spoiler alert. You don't do that. These guys, they stick together. But was that something that you were thinking? I mean, seems like a really common plot device.
I don't know. I mean, I always wanted them to be friends because it's kind of based on the friendships that I've had growing up. And, whenever we've got into sort of scrapes and things like that, there's always been that kind of humor and somebody to have a laugh and a joke with and who's got your back. And so I wanted my character to have that same thing. And it was, it was kind of, I suppose easy is not the right word, but it felt natural to do it that way. So yeah, I didn't think about having his best friend turn out to be the villain of the piece.
You just don't want to give away what's happening in book number 3 because
Well, yeah. Well, when I know, then I'd be able to give it away.
okay, so
Okay,
this is chapter 4.
that's right. Yeah. So Zach has just got to. So from the last scene, this is where Zach has been blackmailed into having to find Mr. Bra, his boss's daughter, and now he's just gone to see his best friend Jags, and this is where we pick up. Zach went out through the French doors into the garden and followed the path to the large brick-built double garage that took up the whole of the far end. He let himself in the side door, entering what Jags used as a home gym and storage area. Small windows near the ceiling allowed some daylight in, but Zach turned on the overhead fluorescents anyway. They flickered to life and lit up the collection of fitness equipment set up on the floor. There were barbell and dumbbell weights and a couple of benches, as well as a treadmill, a rowing machine, and an exercise bike. It wasn't a bad little setup. But what Zach had come for was the punch bag hanging from one of the thick roof joists by a heavy-duty chain and suspended in front of a large mirror. He took off his sweatshirt and draped it on the treadmill so he was just in his t-shirt, and got a set of boxing wraps from a shelf. He wound one round his left hand first, like a bandage, making sure it was nice and tight, then did the right. He shook himself as loose as he could and began hitting the bag. Left, right, left, left, right. He was light on his feet, bouncing, sticking and moving. Jab, jab, straight right, hook. The blows were easy to start with, but as his thoughts returned to Mr. Bra, they became harder and faster, until he was unloading everything he had into them, making the heavy bag bounce around on its chain. When he finally stopped, he was panting and sweaty. He realized it had been ages since he had last trained. He'd meant to keep it up, but his resolve had weakened gradually until he had stopped altogether. His workout now had managed to burn off some of the anger and frustration he'd carried from the builder's yard, and he felt better for it, calmer. He took off the wraps and put on his sweatshirt, locked the garage, and went back to the house. Feeling better? Jags inquired. Yeah. Zach gave him back the keys. Your tea's gone cold. I need some water. He took his mug to the sink, emptied it, and filled it with cold water from the tap. He drank it down in one go, refilled it, and sat back down at the table with Jags. Right, where were we? You just got done telling me you'd been threatened, Jags said. What's the score with the daughter? She's done a legger from home, and no one knows where she is. He wants me to track her down. Why you? Ain't like you're Sherlock Holmes or anything. Says he wants it done quietly without anyone finding out. I can believe that. Desi family wanted to keep it all under wraps. So what are you going to do? Zach shrugged. I don't know. You said it yourself. I ain't no Sherlock Holmes. Where do I even start? They give you anything to go on? Not much. Zach took out the photograph and the list and handed them to Jags. All right, let's see what we can do. Zach smiled at Jags's use of the word we. It was a small word, but it carried a lot of weight. It meant Jags was going to help him, that they were in it together, just like the old days. It was also an affirmation of their friendship. And as Zach knew only too well, sometimes your friends were all you had. Jags looked at the photo. Bloody hell, she's well fit. What's her name? Surinder, but everyone calls her Rita. That don't narrow it down much. You know how many Asian girls are called Rita? Loads, but at least we got a picture. Jags turned his attention to the names and numbers. Is this her number at the top? Yep. I tried it already, but no answer. If she don't want to be found, she'll have ditched the phone and got a new one. Jags looked down the page, lips pursed in concentration. Some of these names seem familiar. Wow, that's cool. Don't mean I actually know any of them, though. Like there's a Ranjit Singh here. You know how many Ranjit Singhs there are in Southwell and Hounslow? Be like searching for a Gora called John Smith. Zach took a breath and let it out slowly. That list and the photo are all I've got. Sorry, man. Jags handed them back. Wish I could be more help. Don't worry about it. Zach looked at the photo again and found himself studying Rita's eyes, her nose, her mouth. You're checking her out too, ain't you? Jags said. Told you she was fit.
And that's Brothers in Blood, read by Amer Anwar, who also, I believe, should read his own audiobook. I know that you probably don't have a lot to say in that. Uh,
I
Awesome.
don't, but you're not the first person who sort of said that to me, which is, very nice to hear.
Yeah, some people just have good voice. I mean, I used to be in radio, and I think everybody has a worthwhile voice. I mean, it's their own voice. I was recording local folks who've never had their voice recorded. That was a great project. But some people are just better. They have a good voice. They have a good pacing. Now, okay, I gotta play devil's advocate. Is this book only for men? The work is physical. The men are violent.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
drink in pubs. They check out women
yeah,
on photos and and on the street.
yeah.
Um, yeah. What's up, Amr? What's with your portrayal of women?
Well, I mean, you're not giving anything away, but it starts off with the portrayal being quite as you'd kind of expect from those communities, but hopefully it does get subverted a little bit later.
Hmm.
And in terms of is the book written for guys? Well, no, it is written for everybody. And I must say that most of the readers who get in touch with me are women. And when I've been to like crime festivals and to talk and stuff like that, I end up talking to a lot of women who they like both the guys, they love the friendship, and they like that the females in the book turn out to be quite fiery and feisty.
Yeah. Yep. Very, very well put. That was the test question.
I
Uh, and
hope I passed.
Well, and we talked actually when we did a little Second Life tutorial. We talked about the language, and you asked me. I mean, these guys they swear a lot. Can we use the F word? Um, and along those lines, we talked about or I brought up what some people call an unfair censorship when certain words are being policed, free speech police. Um, and we had a good conversation. So, first of all, I want to ask you why all these F bombs here? It's kind of an obvious question, but I think it's important uh, to address why do they swear all the time?
Well, the answer to that's simple because that's how people talk. That's how people in that area talk. And I'm being very restrained and polite because that's normally how I talk.
Aha, blame it on the world building. I get
Yeah.
it.
Well, and just the actual world that that's how it is. And it's not, I mean, I think people they use that word as an offensive word, but amongst sort of friends and people, it's used in a very different way. So it's used as uh, a form of affection, even, or surprise, or um, if something's really great, you'll swear, and it's not because you're putting it down. It's because it's wow, that's like really effing great. So yeah, I just think it's sort of all-purpose thing. It's part of the language, and it's not. None of that is new. People think that these words are only recent, and that's why they're so shocking. But these words have been around for like hundreds of years.
Yeah. Paradise here in the chat says, unfortunately, sadly, it's how many people talk. Paradise, I mean, this is, here in the audience, I would just say, this is everybody sees these things differently. Personally, I was wanted to ask Amr this question because I knew the answer was around authenticity of the world that he's building, and the people at the core of the narrative are wonderful people, but they swear. My personal opinion is, frankly, and I need to say this: there are horrible things that are going on in the world, and to focus on uh, or making it seem that using the F word too many times is the end of civilization. I think that's putting the putting the focus on the wrong thing.
Also, I guess it's how you use it as well. I mean, if it's gratuitous, if you're just throwing it in there for the
Yeah.
sake, for shock factor, or for the sake of it, or you're not using it right and it feels false, you know, like you're just doing it to shock, then that's probably not a good use. And then, you know, people, they won't kind of enjoy it. And I think I've tried not to do that, but I've tried to just keep it authentic. So it's just how they would speak, and it's not, you know, the rest of the book isn't peppered with swearing. It's just when people use it during speech, how they would, and not,
Hmm.
you know, not everyone swears, but you know, some of the guys do, and sometimes they're in situations where, you know, I think any normal person would swear.
Paradise says she indulges also in swearing from time to time. There
Well,
we go. I see. Aha. Now, okay. Well, we got you to admit this here on the Second Life Book Club. Little little psychotherapy here as well. Um, now, let's read some more, and this continues where we left off until the end of this chapter, where these two friends begin their search. Another aspect of the book that I really like, because they play detectives. They have never been in this situation. They have to find this woman, and then a lot of stuff gets revealed. But that sort of process of figuring out how to find her, um, it's just enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable ride, and I told you this before privately. For me, who grew up, who got the love of reading through, what some may call formulaic thriller fare, and by no means would I call you formulaic, because I haven't even read the second book yet. So I don't even know if you have a formula that you're going to repeat. But people would call Robert Ludlum and that kind of stuff formulaic. This is the kind of stuff Robert Ludlum, Alistair MacLean. If people don't know these names, Google them. That's when I was 14, 15. That got me like totally hooked. That made me become the book nerd that I am today. So this threw me, your book really kind of threw me back into that mode, and so that's
great,
awesome.
great names to be associated with. But yeah, like you say, these are very amateur detectives. They're not the police and or anything like that. They've had no training, and really part of that stems from the fact that I don't know enough about the police or anyone in the police who would give me the sort of information I needed. And I thought, well,
Ah,
research is just going to be too hard on that, or there's going to be too much involved. So it was part laziness, and then so I threw my character in to the situation, and it was very much, well, if I had to do it, if I had to search for somebody, how the hell would I do it? And
that's brilliant.
yeah, so it's kind of, they figure it out as I sort of figured it out, and all these things that they try and do is very much so. Hopefully, if it feels authentic, it's because it kind of is.
That is brilliant. See, this is really, folks. Did you hear this, kids at home? If you have a combination of lack of knowledge and uh, don't want to get off the couch, write
Yeah,
about yourself.
well, yeah, just put yourself in the well, make your character do what you would do. It's quite easy and fun. Okay, so
All right.
the next section I'm going to read, it's just after um, that last bit that I read. So they're still in Jags's lounge kitchen, and they're trying to figure out what their first step is going to be in finding Rita. Zach put the photograph face down on the table and took another look at the list. There's a number here, says work. Where's she work? I didn't ask. Had other stuff on my mind. So call the number and find out. We ain't got nothing else to go on. He had a point. Zach took out his phone and called the number. Hello, Speedrite Logistics, a young sounding woman said. Could I speak to Rita Bra, please? I'm sorry, she's not here today. Can I help you with anything? No, I really need to speak to her. I'm handling some of Rita's work while she's away. I might be able to help. What's your name? Nina. Is she on holiday, Nina? Any idea when she'll be back? I'm not sure, but if you need to discuss anything to do with her work, you can talk to me. What was the name, sir? Actually, it's nothing to do with work. I'm a friend of hers and I really need to talk to her, but I can't get hold of her. You don't know where she is, do you? It's important. I'm sorry, I don't. Her voice had taken on a different tone, cautious, maybe even a little suspicious. Who are you? Zach considered a couple of lies, but quickly discounted them. He had nothing to lose by telling her who he was. His name wouldn't mean anything to her, or Rita either. My name's Zach. Zach Khan. Her voice took on an icy formality. I'm sorry, Mr. Khan, but all I can tell you is Rita's away. If there's nothing else I can help you with, she was getting ready to end the call. There is something, he said. Can you pass my number on to her? If you're a friend of hers, wouldn't she already have your number? I just got a new one, he lied. She hesitated. I don't know when I'll talk to her next. Well, whenever you do. He wasn't sure she believed him, but she took his number anyway. Tell her to call me, please. It's important. He waited in case she said anything else. She didn't, so he thanked her and hung up. Well, Jag said. She works at a place called Speedright Logistics. I just talked to someone called Nina, and I got a feeling she knows more than she's letting on. That your female intuition? Nah, your mum's. She's letting me borrow hers. Up yours, Jag said, laughing. He opened up his laptop and began typing. Zach studied the list again. Hey, there's a Nina on here, Nina Sangha. I wonder if it was her I just spoke to. There's a number for her as well. Here, check this out, Jag said. He turned the laptop so Zach could see the screen. On it was the website of Speedright Logistics in their corporate colours of red, white and grey. The blurb proclaimed them the dog's bollocks with all things logistical. Jags moved the cursor to the menu and clicked the Contact Us link. It opened another red, white and grey page, this time with an address. It's over near the airport. Half of Southall works round there. If we're lucky, we might know someone there that can help us. Maybe this detective shit ain't so hard after all. Don't count your chickens just yet. We ain't exactly found out much. Her old man probably knows where she works. It's a start. We know more than we did when you got here. That's true. Zach stood up. Thanks for your help. Where are you going? Speedright Logistics. Might as well head over there, see if I can find out anything else. Without me, you think I'm going to sit around wondering if you've got yourself into any more trouble? I'm coming with you. You sure? Does a sing like a drink? All right, come on then. Zach welcomed the help and the company. Hanging out with Jags would stop him brooding over what was going on. He slipped the photo and the list into his pocket. I just need to set up the computer, Jags said, picking up a small metal pig from the centre of the table and placing it carefully on the keyboard. What are you doing? I'm leaving Pigsy here, so it'll look like I'm still working. Zach frowned, so Jags explained further. If I leave the computer untouched for 10 minutes, it automatically changes my status to away from computer, and everyone at work will know I'm not here. If anyone notices how long I'm away for, it could drop me in it. But if I leave Pigsy pressing down on the control key, my status will stay active. I could be eating, sleeping, shitting or wanking, and they'd think I was sitting right here. You often do that stuff when you're supposed to be working. Not all at the same time, Jag said, with a grin. What if they email you or instant message? It's all pushed to my phone so I can get it anywhere and reply. They'll think I'm still here. You take slacking to a whole new level. Thanks. Can we go now? Jags picked up his jacket and keys and they left the house. Zach was halfway to the battered van at the curb when Jags said, Hang on a minute. What the fuck is that? It's the spare van from work. I'm using it while I look for Rita. Whoop-de-doo. You don't seriously want to drive around in that, do you? It's worse than that van you usually drive. Why don't we take my wheels? Zach looked at the van, then at the gleaming black BMW in the drive, then at Jags. Okay.
Now, this is where the van comes in. I don't know if it's the well. This is the other van that was given to him by by the boss. A wonderful reading. Big round of applause in the world is Amer Anwar reading from Brothers in Blood.
Thank
Now,
you.
uh, I'm going to talk also about craft a little bit, and Shyla, our co-producer, put some quotes that she found from you that are really interesting on slides. But before that, I heard a quote by a well-known virtual book show host once, and he said, "Behind every brilliant crime novelist is a woman with a decent day job." Meaning, and because this may be a myth. I think that myth is still very widespread that writers can if they publish a book, if they have a book that is in the store, that means they can make a living from it. Elaborate a little bit about your situation and kind of maybe dispel these myths. And the reason why I love to ask this question is because I believe it gives people actually hope to pursue this,
Oh yeah.
because this myth of like, oh, if I'm not making a living, if I can't raise a family on my writer income, I'm actually not a writer. So go ahead.
Well, that is totally untrue. And yes, unfortunately, there's no sort of rich spouse or partner for myself. I'm at the moment working a full-time job, which means I don't have so much time to write. Um, it took me 8 years to write Brothers in Blood, the first book, because I was writing it around working full-time, studying, and having a young daughter as well. So I was just writing late at night, sometimes weekends, and then it was my first attempt at a novel, and it needed a lot of work. So I finished the first draft, and then I rewrote it, and then I rewrote it again. So the years kind of added up, and I was lucky that I managed to take a little bit of time off work, and I got some grants from an organization called the Arts Council, which will give you funding for arts projects. So I got some funding for to take some time off to work on the book, and I finished the book, and then it got published. And then I went back to work, and then I was lucky enough to get I got a contract for two books, and the publisher wanted a follow-up book. So Stone Cold Trouble is
Mm.
the second in the Zack and Jag series.
Is that something? Let me jump in here. So, is that
Yeah.
something that enters the negotiation pretty fast? If a draft or a proposal is like that, they go like, "Why don't you continue this?"
Well, it's not so much. See, for a debut author, sorry, it's not going to be on a draft or a proposal. You'll have to have finished the whole thing, get it as good as you can, and
Mm,
if they buy it, then they're already thinking about what the next book will be.
mm,
So, yeah, they liked the characters, and they said, look, we think, if you can do more with these characters, because publishers like a series because they know that if the first book does well, then it follows that the second one will do well because people who enjoyed the first will go out and buy the second. So they're kind of um, uh, playing a hunch, really, and they're betting that if the first one does well, then they're kind of assured that the second one will probably do as well. So they sort of will do that. Although I didn't know that I was going to do a second book in the series, so I'd
I was going to
actually,
ask you. I mean, is
yeah.
that something where you go like, "Well, I got to think about it," because this may be something for, I mean, depending on where you're at or where you want to be, as something where you go like, "No, I want this to be a standalone thing because I want to go completely somewhere else. I don't want to milk these two characters just
Well, I
because."
think, yeah,
Yeah.
I sort of initially when you write in the characters, you think, oh, could I do another story with these characters? And I did think about it, but the first book didn't sell straight away. So my agent said, look, maybe it's worth starting something new, something different. So I'd sort of planned out and started writing a standalone thriller with
Mm.
separate characters and stuff. And then when I was fortunate enough to get my book deal, and it was two books, and I told the publisher asked me, "Are you working on anything else?" And I told them about the standalone, and they said, "Oh, that sounds really good, but actually, do you think you could do another one with Zack and Jags?" And I was like, "Okay, well, they're the publisher if that's what they want." So yeah, then I had to sort of take some time and think of a story and then start from scratch on that.
Mm, mm.
But fortunately, that it worked out well. And the second book was just this year longlisted for the CWA Gold Dagger, which is for the crime novel of the year.
That's awesome. But you didn't feel like your artistry was compromised, or you had to kind of like do what the man
No,
says.
well, no, not really, because the standalone's still there. I'm still going to write it, and I thought it was going to be the third book, but it turns out it's going to be the fourth book because
Hmm.
I'm now working on a third Zack and Jags outing.
That
But
that's where they're gonna have the fallout and the corruption, and Jack's gonna kill Zack. And, oh shit! Oh, for
well,
God's sakes, I spoiled it.
well, maybe if you were writing it, that's what would happen. But
I'm gonna direct the movie.
yeah, so yeah, that was the second book, and that was written around sort of working, and then again, I was fortunate enough. I applied for another grant, and I got some time off, and then I could write the book. But as soon as that came out, I mean, even before that was finished, I had to go back to work because I just had to live and needed to be
Yeah.
earning some money. Unfortunately, the writing doesn't earn me anywhere near enough to be able to do that full time. But I mean, that's the dream, that's the goal. And I think, hopefully in another couple of books or so, if they do well, then I might be able to think about doing it full time.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'd love to do, sit around writing. But unfortunately, I can't. And it's a bit of a catch-22 because I'm working, and that doesn't leave much time for the writing. But I want to write and then have time for the writing. So yeah,
And it's really tough to go. I mean, it really requires a lot of discipline to basically switch off the day job and just take the time that is available, and not just have the luxury of, okay, I'm going to take a little break, maybe go for a walk, let the ideas sort of digest or gestate, and then go back and write it down. Uh, as you're talking, I realized that what I learned being a stay-at-home dad is when all of a sudden I had to make do with the time when my little son went to bed, and I had an hour, and no matter how I felt,
yeah.
that was the hour I was given, so I better fill it. You see what I'm saying? Like, because if
I know
you're
exactly what you're saying because I was a stay-at-home dad when I was writing this book, Brothers in Blood, and nap times for me were work time.
yeah,
And so every sort of 2-hour nap in the afternoon, that was it. I would just rush to the laptop and get as much done as I could,
it it
and
takes
then
getting used to, because you have to basically be able to switch it on right away and try to harness that creative uh, juice that is in you, and squeeze it onto the page, or wherever you want to
yeah,
squeeze it
I
into.
think I think routine kind of helps with that. I mean, it's very difficult at first, but the more you do it, the easier it kind of gets. You kind of train yourself to be able to do that, and you get into that rhythm. And then I knew I had that time, and in the meantime, I'd be sort of thinking about it, making notes and stuff like that. And then when you
Well, when the kid always sleeps at the same time, then you have a routine. But if it's like, just, okay, now it's 2 o'clock, and now he's at 5, and I'm a little tired, but I need to take the time. Oh my
yeah,
God.
well, we were kind of good in kind of sticking to the routine. Whether my daughter wanted to or not was beside the point. The routine is a routine, and you got to stick with it. And it kind of worked, and it did work. So that was quite good. But the older she got, the less she needed a nap. So the 2-hour nap in the afternoon went down to 1 hour. Then it went down to like nothing. And then that was hard. So then it was like a lot of late nights. It was basically lack of sleep is how I wrote the book.
Mm. It's awesome, remarkable. We're pushing against the clock. We're going to go overtime a little bit and cut down on our post game Q&A. So we're going to stream a little bit longer, and then that time, unfortunately, will be deducted from our VIP Second Life only hangout. Um, so the stream folks have a little advantage. They see a little bit more. I put up a quote from you in the back here, that Shyla found. and you're saying in an interview there was one thing they weren't saying. It's got all Asian characters set in an Asian community with lots of Asian references.
Yeah.
Basically, they felt it wouldn't appeal to a broad, wide audience. Who is they? What are who is they? Who are you talking about?
Well, publishers.
Hmm.
So as I mentioned, the book didn't sell initially, and so the first book, it won the Crime Writers Association debut dagger for the best unpublished novel, and it got me a top agent as well, who represents a lot of best-selling crime authors. And we worked on the book together. And then when it was ready, she sent it out to all the big publishing houses, all the crime imprints, and the editors there, and it got turned down by every single one of them. And my agent, she knows her stuff, and she couldn't believe nobody took it. And I saw the comments, the feedback, and it was, I remember it very clearly. One of the editors had written back, and he said, "Well, it's got a great setting, it's got great dialogue, great characters, great action, um, but I just don't know if it's right for our list." And I'm like, "Well, hang on, if it's got all those things, what more are you looking for in a crime thriller? Surely that ticks all the boxes."
Mm.
But all the comments were the same. But everyone said, "Oh, it's really well written," and so it's kind of got me thinking. And when you put it all together, it's like, well, there's all these reasons, but what's the one thing that nobody said? And nobody said, "Oh, well, it's a bit Asian," or there was one comment that said, "I don't think it would appeal to a broad audience." And by broad, they meant the majority audience, which is mainly sort of middle class white.
Right.
And that
That's
and if it,
incredible. This ridiculously this coded language there. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah,
Broad
exactly.
audience. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
God.
then the penny dropped, and then I sort of read between the lines. So everyone loved the book. There it was really, but they didn't think that it would sell. And so
Mhm.
I think that's sort of like, maybe unconscious bias or preconceived notions or whatever. But
Well, I don't know if they have data. Do you think that they have data that they know, like, okay, I mean, white people, I mean, I don't know, Asian people in the UK, they don't read. I mean,
well,
there are cliches like that, and
oh,
I
there's a
mean, they're
report out. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
report which has, where somebody interviewed publishers and, anonymously, so they didn't have to give their names. But these attitudes are rife, and it's, some of the comments are even worse
Mhm.
than what I got. So initially, I was like, I thought, well, I don't agree with those comments because the way I wrote this book, it was for everybody. It wasn't just for an Asian audience, and it was because I've read widely myself, and I wrote something that would appeal in the same way. So initially, I self-published the book myself. I set up a fake publishers and designed a logo for it, and I was my own publisher and publicist, and I had all these email addresses that I was watching, and I got the book onto Amazon and Apple, and I printed paperbacks myself and got them into the book shops and book chains in the UK. And I sent them. I sort of stalked the big publishers online on social media and watched how they launched books and copied exactly what they did. My day job is in artwork and graphics, so I was able to like copy. If I saw an image that they had put out that they'd had done professionally, I could copy it almost exactly, but just tweak it for my book.
Mhm.
And I went
That's
to
brilliant.
yeah, I went to book events and gave copies out to authors, hoping that they might tweet about it. I sent copies to book bloggers, and I started getting like really good reviews on Amazon. I was getting like 5-star reviews, and people were writing to me and stuff. And the funny thing is that most of the audience were middle class white readers who loved the book. They were saying, "Oh my God, it's so different to anything else that's out there."
That's
And
amazing. I mean,
and
I-
yeah,
I'm sorry to step in here, but this is such a great example of what I don't know what I would call sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because my suspicion is that there really is no data that suggests that a certain cohort of people or ethnicity or even class a reset. It's just sort of an assumption that there may be some anecdotes, and then a business or a marketing campaign is basically created around these assumptions, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because the stuff that's available doesn't appeal to other people, and then they don't read. And it's basically uh, classism, frankly, in my mind. It just presupposes that certain people uh, maybe don't read at all. And actually, Jessica here in the chat says, I don't think publishers actually read books. And then Ruby says, nor do I really. I hope, Ruby, you mean the publishers, not yourself. But yeah,
But I think it's down to that whole thing about there's this big thing about diversity in publishing as well, because the
mhm,
people who are in the positions to make the decisions about what gets published, they're very kind of, or have been in the past, very white, middle class. They've been to like uh, posh universities, and
yeah,
all they know is a certain kind of world with people like them. So any a
yeah,
book like mine is
absolutely.
outside of their experience, and if they find it uh, unusual, they're like, well, they can't relate to it, then they don't think anybody else will be able to relate to it, and that's not necessarily true.
Absolutely. And again, I'm an expert because I studied sociology for 6 weeks, then I dropped out of college. This is a classist issue that we're describing here. These are people from a certain, well, white background, but they're also from a certain class. They mingle amongst themselves and they may have the best intentions, but they just don't see anything outside themselves. That's true for a lot of journalism as well, unfortunately, from very important publications.
But I
Uh,
mean, in the UK, I can say it is changing because there's a fair few British Asian crime writers coming through, and they're, the books are doing well. Lots of people are reading them. And I think I once heard somebody say if publishers see a bandwagon, they'll jump on it.
yeah, basically
Um,
the money is tied to that wagon.
well, there you go. If they see that, people are buying these books and they'll sell, then they'll be like, well, we need to do that. Let's find another author like that. Because all publishers look for is they want the same thing, but different. That's a thing that a lot of authors say. Yeah, you look at a big selling book, that's doing really well. They'll say, well, we want something just like that, but just a little bit different.
Vanderveer says they may not have the best intention. They're afraid to lose money. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because we are a nice nice crowd here on the Second Life Book Club, and well, I would like to finish off the hour with our friend and co-producer Shyla. Read a little bit from Stone Cold Trouble, which is your second book
Yeah, sure.
in with Zach and Jax. Shyla, please come on stage. And we did this before. This is a fun exercise. The Canadian philosopher and media theorist, coiner of many terms, including the medium is the message, from his book, The Medium is the Massage. That's actually the real title. Some people don't know that. He actually, I put up this slide here. This is from a book called How to Read a Novel. Marshall McLuhan recommends that the browser or the interested reader turn to page 69 of any book and read it. If you like that page, buy the book. It works. And, I shit you not. We tried this a few times and it is quite fascinating with all the caveats that different editions have. When page 69 maybe something completely different, but let's try it anyways.
I'm interested because, like I say, I have no idea what is on page 69 of that book now. So,
So the audience knows a little bit about these characters already, but
yeah.
you don't know anything about this book. Shyla, take it away, and let's see what the audience thinks if this is something that appeals to them. Take it away.
Okay, here we go. Sorry to hear about your brother, the big Singh said. Tall, broad shouldered, bearded, and turbaned, he was the very picture of a Sikh warrior. He was a builder by trade, and the physical nature of his work helped keep him fit and his thickly muscled frame lean. I'll mention it at work tomorrow, he said. Put the word out. See if anyone's heard anything about it who might have done it. That'd be cool. Thanks. You know what the Desi grapevine's like in it, Manjit went on. Someone'll hear something sooner or later. Yeah, but I ain't gonna sit around and wait. I'm following up a couple of things to try to find the bastards myself. What about the cops? What about them? Violent crime stats are going through the roof and they ain't got enough money or men to deal with it. This'll get shelved as just another Asian on Asian thing, unless the evidence falls right in their laps. Well, if I find any, I'll drop it right there for 'em. Otherwise, I'll sort it out myself. Fuck the cops and the courts. I'll do it our way. Page 69.
We
That was
cheated a
great.
little bit because we started the paragraph. It starts a little bit page 68, but this yeah, I think this captures something that at least I would be very interested in.
Great. Great reading. I like it. Was really interesting to hear somebody else reading like the words as well that
Well,
I'd written.
you'll hear it when they hire somebody you don't approve of for the audiobook.
Well,
And
I haven't heard the audio of the first book. The second book isn't out on audio just yet, but I haven't heard the audio version. I don't know. It has to. If it's not quite right, then what am I going to do? I'll be like cringing probably, but I'm sure it's good.
thank you so much, Shala, for reading. And we're going to wrap up the hour. My last question is, yeah, we wanted to get into the fight scenes. How do you write fight scenes? Do you punch someone in the face and
Well,
record it on video and then transcribe it?
that wouldn't be very nice, but I do choreograph them in my lounge. So I will basically play the part of the character in the fight, and then I'll work out where the assailants are, and if Zach throws like a right fist, what position would he be in? So if somebody was coming from his right side, where would they be able to hit him? And I kind of note it all down, and it's sort of it's sort of choreographed like a dance scene or anything.
Hmm.
And I write all the notes down, and then when I'm sort of confident, and I can visualize it in my head then better, and then when I come to write it, I know how the characters are moving in that space, and the punches that are thrown. And I do things like, if I remember for one point there was a fight going on, and I had to sort of throw all the punches and time myself to see how long it would take. And then
See, that's enough. I mean, what I find, I mean, obviously, I'm not don't want to say that on TV or in the movies it's easier. There are other challenges, but this is such a visual thing, and that's what fascinates me when people who are good with words, they're able to um, make it possible for me, the reader, to visualize this with just words. Such a physical visual thing.
it's quite hard, but I think I have a very visual imagination. I mean, I grew up with comics and I love films, so I kind of, when I read a book or when I'm writing a book, I kind of visualize it. So I have it like sort of cinemascope in my head, and then it's just trying to convey that with words.
You're very humble because I think that's you're doing a better job than a lot of screenplays that I read. I know a screenplay is different. It has a different purpose, but to have an attractive prose, and Amer doesn't know what kind of a snobbish elitist family I come from, with my mother who forced me to read Heinrich Böll and Günter Grass, while I just wanted to read Conan the Barbarian. But let's not get into that because we talk about it every week. Uh, so again, my congratulations to a wonderful book. I'm assuming the second one, now that we read page 69, is also awesome.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you, Amer. What last question? What do you read? What are you reading, or can you read
Uh,
when you write all the time, or do you need something else to
I've
bring the balance back?
always been a reader ever since I learned at about the age of sort of 5, and I've always got a book on the go. I will read anything. I love fantasy, science fiction, crime, historical. I read very broadly. At the moment, I'm reading Gorky Park by Martin Cruz Smith.
Ooh.
Because it's the 40th anniversary of the book, and their publisher has asked me if I might give a quote for the new edition. So I'm reading that for the
Oh,
first time, and it's a really good book. I'm enjoying that. But my favorite crime authors are Elmore Leonard,
Yeah.
Richard Stark, who wrote the wonderful Parker novels, and another American author called Joe R. Lansdale, who writes the Hap and Leonard series and lots of great standalones. So, yeah, those are some recommendations if anybody's interested.
Wait a minute, Joe Lansdale. I think I talked to his publicist, and he might be coming to the book club.
Oh wow, yeah, he's a great, and he's really funny. He's got some hilarious stories of because he's been in the business for a long time, but he's a great guy. Yeah,
Oh my God, I got to talk to my manager. But my
yeah,
manager is myself. He just has a different email,
yeah,
just like you, Amer. I have
yeah.
5 people. Oh, let me talk to Drax. I don't know if he's available right now.
He's too busy to talk to you.
He's too busy right now. That's how you got to play it. Um, so again, thank you so much, and thank you, audience.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Wonderful. Please let us know what you're reading by commenting on the book club trailer. And Shyla, if you could put the book club trailer link into the local chat, let me run through my credits, and then we will have Amr for another 15 exclusive minutes with your questions. If we didn't get to them, let me see if these are the correct credit slides. Oh yeah, the Second Life Book Club every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. slbookclub@draxtor.com is the email address. Sometimes we are at 5 o'clock, but mostly at 12 o'clock. And these are Second Life times, which are Pacific times. The show is produced by Isabel Sharon, Shyla the Super Gecko, and myself, the location manager and master builder here on the islands is Ruby Geek. The avatars are made by Silas, Ruby, and Kralos. Special thanks to Marion McCann, Arden Schwartzman, Theanine, AJ McDowell, Brett, and Patch from Linden Lab, and of course, all the moles at Linden Lab. We actually used to have security from the moles, but I think they're too busy now that Xenoscope is in Second Life, this graphic novel company with their Van Helsing. So they're dissing us because they think we're just book nerds. But anyways, yeah, Amr, I'll tell you, the comics people, they have taken over. But the SL Book Club is sponsored by a whole bunch of wonderful creators here in Second Life. Please do frequent their stores. There are announcements all over the islands with links to their stores, and we will have a third island where we display their wares. So those are the sponsors. If you know somebody who wants to become a sponsor, that just involves basically them giving us free merch that we can use for building. Um, please let us know. Again, the email is slbookclub@draxtor.com. For authors, recommend if you want to recommend authors, share ideas, critique. You can also ping Jared the bot. That's Jared bot. And please do not forget to tip our volunteer staff. Now the tip jar is right here at the edge of the stage, and you can put a few Linden dollars in there if you have them. Um, that's very much appreciated. We have a calendar, we have Discord and Flickr and all sorts of distractive things. Uh, you don't find me on there because I'm constantly reading. And if people like Amer write books over 400 pages, that doesn't leave a lot of time looking at the Discord. But anyways, do look at the Discord because we might have a group for the three body problem discussion group. Now, next week, 12 o'clock normal time, a wonderful panel, August the 18th. Wonderful panel with Volita Labi, Tlotlo, Samase, Dilmandilla, and Tende Hushu. Oh, this is misspelled here. I have to check this. But this panel is going to be on the topic of African futurism. Very interesting. African futurism is different from Afrofuturism, and we will find out. Please check the calendar. There is a link to a free anthology that you can download now and read with these authors and many, many other prominent African authors. Very much looking forward to this panel next week, next Wednesday, 12 o'clock, right here on the Second Life Book Club.